I think music is about stories. As a musician, I find that I jump straight to tone poems and program music, which is completely justified. However, if we consider the broader picture, we find that music tells us much bigger stories. It's deeply woven into the fabric of a nation, its people, and its culture. Nowhere is this truer than in Wales. My intention in this presentation is to use music to tell that story, and in the process, discover more about the music and musical traditions of my home. The earliest reference to Welsh music was an entry in De Excludio et Conquestu Britanniae, dating back to the 6th century, where the monk Gildas spoke of a Welsh bard singing praises of God. At this time, Wales was split into many small kingdoms, led by chieftains, and bards served as key members of the royal courts. They would sing, compose, and recite poetry according to statutes of what are now known as the Lords of Howdar. Bards would use a range of instruments, including the Welsh triple harp, the cwrf, pibgon, and Welsh bagpipes. They were used to accompany sung poetry. Poetry and music are heavily linked in Wales. In fact, both poetry and music are called cerdd in the Welsh language. Cerdd dant is a Welsh art form that continues the bardic traditions of poetry and song. It uses the same rules of metre and rhyme known as cynganef. The Eisteddfod, an annual festival celebrating Welsh art, culture and tradition, features competitions in cerdd dant every year, where a poet is given a piece of poetry to recite with a harp accompaniment. The harp will play a popular tune, and the poet improvises a melody and rhyming structure to go with it. The Eisteddfod is a key piece of Welsh art, culture and tradition, and this is just one of the ways the Welsh musical tradition lives on in the modern day. Here is an example of cerdd dant.
Mae'r rhai o blaid mir o hyd, mir na sneb fy myryd a'i feini, yr hyn fynydd mawr swm dros y cwm bach ci.
We have very little information about the way the lower classes in Wales interacted with music at the time of the bards. The first significant account we have is Itinerarium Cambriae, a medieval account of a royal clerk's journey through Wales. The clerk, known as Gerald of Wales, or Gerach Cymro, gives us a small insight into the role music played in everyday life. He spoke of songs and dances at a Saints' Day festival, describing villagers dancing around the churchyard, singing as if entranced. He also spoke of oxen songs, a uniquely Welsh tradition where, instead of herding cattle from behind, farmers would stand in front of the cattle and sing to them, encouraging them to follow. Lots of these songs were written down by Iolo Morgannwg to preserve the tradition. In the 16th century, Henry VIII signed the Act of Union between Wales and England, which, among many other things, prevented the use of the Welsh language in courts and public offices. It pushed the Welsh aristocracy away from the Welsh language and effectively ended the employment of the bards. The development of Welsh traditional music was significantly affected as a result. This prompted people to begin attempting to preserve Welsh musical tradition. People like Robert ap Huw, who wrote Musica neu Beroriaeth, the oldest surviving collection of secular music in Wales. At this time, I'd also like to mention ancient British music, which was rediscovered here at the RCM in the 1900s. Looking at the musical examples, there are a few features that I found interesting. The way it was notated reminded me of a Baroque basso continuo part and a melody. This is a good clue as to how the music functioned, with a syllabic sung melody and accompaniment, fitting in the chords based on the written figures. The music itself is laid out like a hymn tune, with extra verses written underneath the main melody / first verse. The melodies are pretty consistently conjunct, though there are a few anomalies, and the lyrics tend to follow a theme of love or romance, as we can see in the two examples you have in front of you. Welsh traditional music took yet another hit in the 1800s with the rise of Methodism in Wales. While the religion gave a desperately needed lifeline to the Welsh language, it viewed art and pleasure as a sin and insisted that it was used for worship only. Traditional folk music either died out or was turned into hymns. That was until Tylee Abraham Wood, a Welsh Romany family of skilled musicians who travelled the country singing songs for farmers and townsfolk, came along. They didn't care about the opinions of the church and would go on to win the Eisteddfod, almost single-handedly saving Welsh traditional music in the process. Religion also brought a lot of new musical traditions to Wales. Male voice choirs and hymns especially are now staples of Welsh music. It also brought lesser known traditions including canu pwnc, the art of chanting Bible verses in unison, and plygain. Plygain is a church service that begins on the night of Christmas Eve and ends at the break of dawn on Christmas Day. The service consists of small vocal groups singing intricately harmonised carols through the night. In my mind, it's one of the most beautiful aspects of Welsh music. First, canu pwnc. And now, plygain. Truly beautiful. In 1847, the British government released what is now known in Wales as the Prad I Llyfrau Gleision, one of several measures by the government to diminish the Welsh language. The report, investigating poor Welsh children's access to education and the English language, features a clause that investigated the troubles and behaviour of the Welsh people. The report described the language as a vast drawback to Wales and even used the word evil. Speaking Welsh was banned in many schools after this, and children caught speaking it were forced to wear a sign called the Welsh Knot. The child wearing this at the end of the day faced corporal punishment. With Welsh music and culture being under threat yet again, more efforts were made in preservation, including recordings by people like Meredith Evans singing traditional Welsh songs in their intended style. In a time already fraught with unrest and hostility, this report brought a strong reaction from the Welsh people, including plays like poet R.J. Revel's Brad I Llyfrau Gleision, which is an example of music's role as an act of rebellion and defiance. The history of Welsh music is difficult and complicated. It reflects perfectly the history of the nation itself and struggles it has faced through the process. Its identity has been forged through the trouble it had faced, and its existence today tells a story of unparalleled resilience, with unique instruments, styles and traditions that shape it, and a broad and varied soundscape rife with history and pride. Welsh music is comparatively unknown compared to other nations like Ireland or Scotland, despite the numerous parallels between them, to which I must add that it is an enormous shame. But thanks to the effort of the Welsh people, Welsh music is coming back with a vengeance, and that makes me immensely happy to see.